Surveillance is an integral part of the social world, and it's an area that's constantly changing. The recent interest in surveillance coincides with the rapid development of Web 2.0 and introduction of technological innovations which have sought to transform surveillance practices. I'm going to be talking to you about the ongoing debate of the irrelevance and relevance of Foucault's writing of the Panopticon. Do we still live in the world that Foucault was describing? The Panopticon is a literal architectural structure proposed in the 18th century by English social theorist Jeremy Bentham. The concept of the Panopticon is used metaphorically by the French philosopher Marko Puusaar in his well-known work Discipline and Punish to suggest the operations of power in contemporary society. Unfortunately, Foucault passed away before the introduction of the World Wide Web. The concept of the design was structured to allow a single watchman to observe all inmates in an institution without them being able to tell whether they were being watched. This design allowed a small number of those in authority to observe a large number of individuals. The concept included the idea not only that prisoners should be observed by those in authority, but also that they should ideally develop self-surveillance and disciplining strategies in an effort to improve themselves. The Panopticon creates a consciousness of permanent visibility as a form of power, where no bars, chains, and heavy locks are necessary anymore. A number of surveillance scholars have shifted their attention from the panoptic to the rhizomic, arguing that Foucault's failed to account for technical advances such as the internet. Cal Ewer, in his chapter The Post-Panoptic Society, Reassessing Foucault in Surveillance Studies, outlines the various arguments in relation to surveillance and Foucault's theory. Non-panoptic notions understand surveillance in a non-hierarchical and decentralized way, where everyone has the opportunity to surveil. It conveys the notion that these corporations and state institutions are equally as powerful as we are. So basically the rhizomic is an interconnected root and represents a decentralized network. So Thomas Matheson introduces the term synopticon as a direct counterpart to the panopticon. Instead of the few seeing many, technology and the mass media have now enabled an environment where the many see the few. Synopticism means that many individuals are able to observe and control certain phenomena or processes. The power of the synopticon has evolved in unison with society's naturally voyeuristic nature. People have always been infatuated with the lives of others. No example is more obvious than stalking a celebrity on Twitter to see what they're up to and what the latest trends are. This shows how celebrities are viewed by many via the internet and mass media, creating a synoptic environment. YouTube also provides an online database where very few individuals who can potentially be viewed by an infinite amount of individuals. It is imperative to recognize that even though we may often enjoy being on the viewing side, that is part of the many, we are always in the constant state of vulnerability, that is to become part of the few. Haggerty and Erickson also support this theory, as in their article, The Surveillance Assemblage, they suggest that Foucault places his emphasis on the society of the 19th century, rather than applying his ideas in the context of new technological developments. They focus on the computerized databases and how they require us to rethink Foucault's panoptic metaphor. The assemblage considers surveillance to be dispersed and rhizomic phenomenon being conducted by an unrelated array of groups and practices. However, Cal Ewer disagrees, as he argues that theorists such as Haggerty and Matheson focus more on the power of the observer rather than those being observed, which in turn contradicts Foucault's work. He suggests that rather than moving beyond Foucault, they are pre-Foucault, as they have completely misread Foucault and ignored the effects of surveillance on an individual's actual experience. They assume that surveillance is a uniform social phenomenon and do not attempt to explore how those under surveillance react or respond to it. They haven't actually fully incorporated the individual into the analysis. So Cal Ewer is primarily in support of the panoptic view. This view is that Foucault's notion of the panoptic is used for studying surveillance, as it narrows the definition of surveillance and suggests that it is connected to coercion, repression, discipline, and domination. Power is primarily centralized and society tends to be repressive and controlled. So this is the idea that technology of control has emerged from the interests of corporations and state institutions, which may locate individual users. Governments, for example, and corporations like Microsoft and Google use special surveillance technologies to allow the monitoring of online behavior in one central database. A recent example was a proposal for data retention laws by the Abbott government, in order to keep metadata in relation to customer calls and internet use for security agents to access. Authorities will be able to view what internet sites people have been viewing as well as basic information regarding a phone call, such as the caller's location. This, in my view, confirms the power imbalance and the involuntary relationship between the internet and its users. The idea considers, just like Foucault, surveillance to be negative and centralised, hence being connected to control and power. Overall, while post-panopticism has made significant contributions in recognising the changed patterns of surveillance within social media, especially the rise and dispersion of data surveillance practices, scholars such as Kalyua emphasise that we must recognise the broader contributions made by Foucault in understanding surveillance, power, and everyday life.